All right. Invocation to the Supreme God, to the great divine Father and the great divine Mother. Thank you for your priceless blessings, for your divine light, divine love, divine power, divine healing, guidance, mercy, help, and protection. Thank you. To our great spiritual teacher, to all the great spiritual teachers, to all the great gods and goddesses, to all the great, great ones. We very, very humbly thank you for your great blessings. We thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Thank you. All right, let's start. Yes, perfect. All right, yeah. Well, let's go forward. About drugs, that's a new chapter. In India, there is a long tradition of the use of charas, smoked in a chillam and mixed with tobacco. Charas is used extensively by a large percentage of the millions of wandering sadhus, or those who are followers of the god Shiva. Smoking is a part of religious ritual. For others of a devotional bent, it is used to accentuate the emotional fervor of the devotional practices. In his earlier years, when Maharajji was also a wandering sadhu, he undoubtedly sat in the jungle around many a fire with other sadhus, and may or may not have used charas himself. And in his later years, although he himself did not use such things, he was supportive of those who did. In many instances, he helped sadhus to obtain charas or arsenic, another substance used in tiny doses by sadhus. He took a dim view, however, towards the use of hashish by householders. That is, though, just give me a second. Um, some issue. Anyways, back here. He says that for householders, he did not recommend the use of hashish or drugs, charas, etc., to those with families, often directing at them a stream of abuse or at least kidding and constant prodding about the matter. He said that it made them forget their responsibilities. For the Westerners, he generally discouraged the use of such drugs as hashish and opium as means for altering consciousness. Food is the best intoxicant. Love is the best medicine. However, to some of the Westerners who were genuinely pursuing the renunciate life of the wandering sadhu and who were habituated to smoking hashish or devotional practices, he did not discourage its use. While charas was a product native to India, LSD was not. Because so many Westerners had experienced the awakening of the spirit through ingesting LSD. It was inevitable that Maharajji and LSD would someday meet, and this meeting produced over a 6 year period much Leela. Maharajji knew I smoked. He knows everything. But Maharajji never told me to quit this habit, never said it was bad, never said anything about it. Sometimes other Babas and I would be in my room below the temple, smoking chillams. If Maharajji would come by, he would never come into the room where we were smoking. Sometimes he'd pass by the doorway, mutter loudly to whomever was with him, let those sons of bitches, literally sons in law, be, and pass on by. And the bitches, literally sons in law, be, and pass on by. Maharajji would even obtain charas from me. If a man came to Maharajji for darshan, Maharajji would ask him to hand over to me whatever charas he had. Maharajji filled many people's desires in this way, whether it was charas, money, sweets, and whatever they wanted. Maharajji would be the agent to procure it for them. Oftentimes at Kenchi, if a sadhu who was Chilam Baba came home for darshan, Maharajji would send him back of the ashram to smoke with me. That's funny. I've seen Maharajji give hashish to people with his own hands. Wow. When people smoke hashish together, they forget everything family, duty, and they think that another person is their closest brother. Hmm. Hashish is bad for health. It gives you lust, anger, greed, and attachment. It is bad for the heart and breath. Interesting. Hashish is bad for health. It gives you lust, anger, greed, and attachment. By the way, these are four important chakras: solar plexus, navel, basic, and sex chakra. All the lower chakras, solar plexus. Well, also Ming Ming gets involved because their anger is there. Solar plexus, navel, Ming Ming, sex, and the basic. It act not just activates probably, it really makes them more potent probably. That's my best guess of what happens when you smoke. These things, the lower chakras become really big, and these were these tendencies sort of increase. It doesn't make the upper chakras big most likely. You should smoke hashish like Lord Shiva, only to be with God. Smoking hashish is not necessary. It does you no good to smoke. It only lasts a short while and it isn't good for the heart. Devotion to God is an addiction that lasts all the time. Now, my personal understanding of this is um, when you say damage to the heart, I best guess that you feel very devotional, very good when you start smoking hashish or when you start smoking um, chillam or things like that, right? Because somehow, somewhere, it also activates the heart chakra. It makes the lower chakras very, very congested with negative thoughts, and emotions, but it also activates the heart chakra, which is why the devotional quotient also increases for people who are practicing things like this. There is something else also. There is something else in Western or European tradition called ayahuasca, used majorly by people that are the Indians or the Red Indians of America, right? They use ayahuasca, and they are the ones that uh, have psychedelic experiences along with their so-called practices. In his earlier days, Maharaji frequently visited a certain sadhu at his dhuni, open fire, outside the city of Aligarh. This sadhu habitually smoked charas and ganja, marijuana, along with any other intoxicant he could find. One day, he showed Maharaji a new drug that he said gave the most intense and blissful intoxication. Offering some to Maharaji, he warned that only the smallest amount was needed. But Maharaji took the whole piece and swallowed it. Moments later, Maharaji fell unconscious and collapsed. The sadhu knew the remedy for overdose: 4 kilos of milk, and when this was brought from the bazaar, he poured it down Maharaji's throat. Maharaji revived and sat up, seeing the sadhu seated across from him. Maharaji slugged him in a moment of fury. You tried to kill me! He poisoned me! Ha! Wicked person! He shouted as he ran away. It's funny. Oh God. A sadhu named N Baba. I think N is not the complete name, of course. N Baba, who usually lived beyond Bageshwar on the glacier side, considered Maharajji to be his guru and would sometimes visit him. Maharajji would offer him a place on his bed, but the sadhu always sat. One second. But the sadhu always sat on the floor. The sadhu ate arsenic to keep out the cold. 5 or 6 years earlier, the Baba had come for a visit, and Maharajji asked him, "And what do you eat?" Sadhu replied, "He ate arsenic." Maharajji said, "Let's see." Sadhu took out his bag enough to kill two people. Maharajji grabbed it and ate the whole thing. Everyone was shocked, but Maharajji only asked for a glass of milk. He showed no effects. Wow. 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 Do you remember there was another story of Tralinga Maharaj in the book Autobiography of a Yogi? He drank the poison from, I mean, he would demonstrate these things to show that when the soul is in charge, these things have no effect on the body, right? He drank a whole bottle of poison in front of the busy street, and everybody was noticing, of course. And then nothing happened to him. He walked from there like a chill person, like basically. So when the soul is in charge, it can alchemize, it can transmute all of these things. I'm again going to repeat it. When the soul is in charge, it has the power, it can alchemize, it can transmute all these things in the system. Very remarkable thing, by the way. One day Maharaji was walking alone along the Ganges. He encountered some sadhus in their small kutis there. They asked him who he was, where he stayed, and what and where he ate. Maharaji explained that he was just a wanderer with no home and that he stayed where he could and ate when food was available. They asked him to come stay with them a while. Will you feed me? He asked. They told him of course they would. So he sat with them a while. A sadhu came along and began preparing a chilam for everyone. It was passed around and it was offered to Maharaji. He became very abusive, calling them bums and fakes and accusing them of trying to ruin him and of ruining themselves. Then he stormed away. Shortly afterwards, another sadhu came to the kuti and asked him if they hadn't been able to recognize Maharaji. What kind of sadhus were they if they couldn't even recognize a Siddha Mahatma, a highest saint, who visits them personally? They mumbled, how could we recognize him the way he behaved? It's funny. By the way, these are individual stories given by individual people. Some of the Westerners had another kind of drug karma, for they had been involved in smuggling hashish. When Maharaji found this out, he embroiled them in a complex smuggling operation that necessitated their being away from the temple and thus from his presence for long periods of time. Their proceeds from this venture were to be used for charitable purposes, offering now to God the results of what they had done previously for personal gain was a powerful lesson which they appreciated. However, they were very unhappy at being banished from the gatherings around Maharajji. That their guru should be countenancing and even encouraging such activities led them to deep reconsiderations of their own models of good and evil. His involvement also led to a bravado in the operation, for they felt that with his protection, they could not get caught. However, when it occurred to them that it was not necessarily Maharaji's way to interfere with karma, and that it might be their karma to go to jail, the unique exhilaration was lost. By the time they had finished the project, they had more than enough of these illicit activities. Oh God. Yeah, Maharaj, so for example, any great enlightened master would tell different things to different people. For example, to some of them, the great master will say, you know what, you go practice martial arts. To other person, he will say, no, no, you go practice yoga. Martial arts is dangerous for you. For some, he would say, you know what, practice this breathing exercise. It's very, very important for you. For some, he would say, grow your hair. For some, he would say something else, something else, something else, something else, right? To each his own personal guidance would be given and not the same for every person, right? Because each person needs are very, very different. Um, and those guidance are very direct. For example, some can use a direct benefit by say practice of clairvoyance much early. Some are not taught clairvoyance till a later stage. For example, the techniques. Some people are taught a certain mode of blessing or accessing a very high form of energy much earlier. Some are not taught until they've shown certain amount of gratitude and purification for longer, which may take longer period of time. So depending upon each person's development, certain techniques, certain things are shared, certain results are expected, sometimes no results are expected. A lot of these things happen in when you're talking about a great master observing the soul, whichever way they're observing the soul, right? Very interesting, by the way. So, in this case, also some people were advised the use of hashish and chillum because maybe they were too materially attached. And when you consume things like this, it detaches you for at least some time to experience what peace the soul actually feels like, right? That balances them to some degree. Because tomorrow they have to again go to work and too much material attachments and things like that. So small doses of chillum with people really uproots them for temporarily at least with their material bindings, right? Family binding and so and so. It basically becomes a path in advance for people who are very matter centric. If they have never exposed themselves to spiritual science or spirituality, this kind of weed, chillum, hashish, and whatnot, they bring them on borderline to spiritual path because they start to experience newer realities, easier, faster way in that sense. But this is not recommended for people definitely who are advanced practitioners. Absolutely nowhere close. Um, and for householders who have to live their household and run their income sources and things like that, it's not recommended also. So for he would give different advice to different kinds of people also. For example, if you're having a lot of emotional suffering and pain, and you can't forget that your so and so passed away, he'll probably, and if you're very nervous on the spiritual path, he'll give you a little bit of chill and say, okay, go smoke. It probably means that as the heart chakra will expand, the trauma may get released, for example, or whatever that comes along with it. In 1967, when I first came to India, I brought with me a supply of LSD, hoping to find someone who might understand more about these substances than we did in the West. When I had met Maharaji after some days, the thought had crossed my mind that he would be a perfect person to ask. The next day, after having the thought, I was called to him, and he asked me immediately, "Do you have a question?" Of course, being before him was such a powerful experience that I had before completely forgotten the question I had in my mind the night before. So I looked stupid and said, "No, Maharaji, I have no question." He appeared irritated and said, "Where is the medicine?" I was confused, but Bhagwan Das suggested maybe he means the LSD. I asked, and Maharaji nodded. The bottle of LSD was in the car, and I was sent to fetch it. When I returned, I emptied the vial of pills into my hand. In addition to the LSD, there was a number of other pills for this and that diarrhea, fever, a sleeping pill, and so forth. He asked about each of these. He asked if they gave powers. I didn't understand at that time and thought that by powers perhaps he means physical strength. I said no. Later, of course, I came to understand that the word he used, siddhis, means psychic powers. When he held out his hand for the LSD, I put one pill on his palm. Each of these pills was about 300 micrograms of very pure LSD, a solid dose for an adult. He beckoned for more, so I put a second pill in his hand, 600 micrograms. Again, he beckoned, and I added yet another, making the total dose 900 micrograms. Certainly not a dose for beginners. Then he threw all these pills in his mouth. My reaction was one of shock mixed with fascination for a social scientist eager to see what would happen. He allowed me to stay for an hour. By the way, who's written this? Ramdas, exactly. Yeah. This is Ramdas's personal experience, by the way. He allowed me to stay for an hour and nothing happened. Nothing whatsoever. He just laughed at me. The whole thing had happened very fast and unexpectedly. When I returned to the United States in 1968, I told many people about this acid feat. But there had remained in me a gnawing doubt that perhaps he had been putting me on and had thrown the pills over his shoulder or palmed them because I hadn't actually seen them go into his mouth. 3 years later, when I was back in India, he asked me one day, "Did you give me the medicine when you were in India last time?" "Yes." "Did I take it?" he asked. "I think you did. What happened?" "Nothing." "Oh, Jao." And he sent me off for the evening. Basically, he confirmed the doubt that he did not take it. The next morning, I was called over to porch in front of his room where he sat in the mornings on a tucket. He asked, "Have you got any more of that medicine?" It just so happened that I was still carrying a small supply of LSD for just in case. And this obviously was it. Yes, get it, he said. So I did. In the bottle were 5 pills of 300 micrograms each. One of the pills was broken. I placed them on my palm and held out to him. He took the 4 unbroken pills. Then, one by one, very obviously and very deliberately, he placed each one in his mouth and swallowed it. Another unspoken thought of mine now answered. As soon as he swallowed the last one, he asked, "Can I take water?" "Yes, hot or cold. It doesn't matter." He started yelling for water and drank a cup when it was brought. Then he asked, "How long will it take to act?" "Anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour." He called for an older man, a long-time devotee who had a watch. And Maharajji held the man's wrist, often pulling it up to him to peer at the watch. Then he asked, "Will it make me crazy?" 4 pills खा गया 120 microgram is a lot of dose, no? That seemed so bizarre to me that I could only go along with what seemed to be a gag. I said, "Probably." And then we waited. After some time, he pulled the blanket over his face, and when he came out after a moment, his eyes were rolling and his mouth was ajar, and he looked totally mad. I got upset. What was happening? Had I misjudged his powers? After all, he was an old man. Though how old I had no idea. And I had let him take 1200 micrograms. 1200, 1200 micrograms, yeah. Maybe last time he had thrown them away, and then he read my mind, was trying to prove me that he could do it, not realizing how strong the medicine really was. Guilt and anxiety poured through me. But when I looked at him again, he was perfectly normal and looking at the watch. At the end of an hour, it was obvious that nothing had happened. His reactions had been a total put on, and then he asked, "Have you got anything stronger?" I didn't. Then he said these medicines were used in Kulu Valley long ago, but yogis have lost that knowledge. They were used with fasting. Nobody knows now. To take them with no effect, your mind must be firmly fixed on God. See? To take these things along with poison, this, that, your mind must be firmly fixed on God. Others would be afraid to take. Many saints would not take this, and he left it at that. So this is basically like a lesson how to neutralize poison and other things like this. So, firmly fixed in God also means firmly fixed in the realization of God, and not just that you believe in God, right? Let's go forward. LSD is good for the world but not spiritual. LSD is good for the world but not spiritual. LSD allows you to come into the room and pranam to Christ. But after 2 hours, you must leave. The best medicine is to love Christ. Matlab, what happens? I will tell you what happens. The science of this. LSD is not the true samadhi. The science of this. What happens is there are some chemicals. It's given in the book Astral Body and the Astral Phenomenon. Some kinds of chemicals and some kind of drugs, by the way, which open the chakras in a very unnatural manner, which means they are not supposed to open in that specific way, the way these drugs open them. Having said this, it also has, like, what is unnatural opening? Spiritual energy and other higher forces come from higher planes down to the lower plane. That is the only natural course of energy made by nature. Flow from higher to lower, right? I mean, in nature also, the water never flows from lower to higher, right? Of course not, right? Um, However, with these drugs, though, energy or chemical energy start to flow from lower to higher sources, reversing the natural flow intended by nature. Okay, in that way or that process, they burn up some areas, they disintegrate and burn some or cause tears and cracks in the mechanism, which are supposed to work one way only. Hence, temporarily for some time, if not used for a very, very long time, sometime it leads to seeing realities which should only be seen once you are deeply in samadhi and in a deep meditation. It does definitely open those mechanisms up. Permanent damages, I don't think happen unless you're a very, very long-term user of, relatively long-term user of these drugs. But substantial damages can happen even with a few weeks to a few months of use, for sure. And they're harder to recover, by the way. So just FYI. Once the Westerner asked me to translate for him. He wanted to ask Maharajji how he could help his friend back in America. The friend was in a very confused state through so many LSD trips. Maharajji said to tell the friend to remember God all the time. See, this is amazing. Like I am the soul affirmation is also the similar thing of remembering God, for example. I had brought a picture with me of a boy who had died in America under strange circumstances. In 1968, he had come to see me in New Hampshire and had become one of my first students of yoga. He would come and visit each week, and he immediately absorbed everything I shared with him of what I had learned in India. I had eventually wanted to send him to a Haridas for further training. This also looks like Ramdas had written this by R.D. Ramdas, yeah. But he preferred to live in a cave in Arizona to continue his sadhana. I had taught him all I could, but he wrote me letters and checked in every few months during the winter of 1968 1969. I didn't hear from him for a while and later learned that he had died in the cave. His mother had shared with me his final diary entries, which were most unusual. I suspected that the final diary entry had been written while he was under the influence of LSD. The story was that he had been the story was that he had been found dead with blood coming from his nose and that there was blood on the wall. Perhaps he had been doing pranayam, yogic breathing practice, and had a burst of blood vessel. The entries were as follows. Ramana Maharshi and my guru are both navigating my Mahasamadhi. No worry, I am in infinite bliss and will guide you from within. Write Ramdas and tell him the good news that I have no longer to undergo sadhana. I am there. Love, love. I know what is happening. Also, the Guru is with me inside. Know that I have left the body completely identified with Jesus. Jesu está conmigo. Yo estoy en su corazón con Guru. I promised his mother that when I was next with Maharaji, I would ask him about her son. At the appropriate time, I fetched what had been his high school graduation picture and handed it to Maharaji. He peered at it closely and then said, He's not in his body. That's right, Maharaji. He died from taking medicine. Aha, I thought so. This implied to me that he had not indeed entered true samadhi, but had probably done pranayam while on LSD. But then Maharaji, apparently understanding my doubt, said, No, it is all right. He will not take rebirth. He finished his work. Now he is one with Christ. He loved you very much. He cried about you. Wow, he will not take rebirth, huh? That's cool, man. That's interesting, actually. Hmm. Oh, interesting. Maharaji was silent for some time and then added, You should tell his mother she should not worry. He is with Christ. He is watching over for her. He finished his work. Maharaji had quoted exactly the words of the diary, and he had showed me that under circumstances, LSD could be the vehicle for returning to God. Then Maharaji sat silently with eyes closed. The moment was one of the great power. Wow, this is very interesting. Under certain circumstances, LSD could be the vehicle for returning to God. Hmm, that's interesting. One morning, a number of us who had taken acid, I think is that drug by the way, hashish or chillum, right? Decided to break into the LSD, acid is LSD by the way, break into the ashram early and get front row seats. So we all went tramping through the potato patches, over the stream, and across the wall. We took our morning baths amid calls of Sitaram, salutation using the names of Sita, Ram's consort, and Ram. Put on our fresh, clean clothes and got our front row seats in front of the tucket. We got centered, did our meditations or whatever else one does while waiting for Maharaji to come out. We were all lined up, tripping. I was sitting at one of the short ends of the tucket. All of a sudden, the door burst open, bam! And there was Maharaji in a brand new psychedelic blanket, and one of the devotees had given him. No one had time to leap to his feet. He was just suddenly there, twinkling like a star. Everyone was trying to get up, and he just kicked his way through, sat down on the bench, and ignored us all. He just sat there, occasionally looking at someone, then he'd continue to look at the sky, but then he went down the line, checking everyone out, sometimes for no more than an instant. That lasted for about 10 minutes. He had come out early, and when the rest of the ashram realized he was out and came running, he returned immediately to his little room. What is a psychedelic blanket? Once again. Psychedelic. Oh, you should really see this, by the way. That's fancy stuff, man. You guys should see this. That's a new stuff. Very fancy stuff. Psychedelic blanket. Do you see this fancy stuff? It's so cool, man. So cool. Wow. Wow. I'm gonna get this one for myself. It's really cool. You know what? I'm gonna get one of these for myself. So fancy, man. See the kind of things that books lead you to. Funny. Psychedelic blankets. They really glow, huh? That's fancy. Wow. Imagine doing a meditation with this on your shoulders. Anyways. I think somebody wrote in a comment that the Master Hector said that he read a lot of books and he felt detached and emotionally less. Master scanned his heart chakra, which was very small, so he asked him strictly to stop reading books and gave him holidays and generate loving kindness, and asked him to read joke books, learn music and photography. What I remember was this also, plus I think not this was not the only reason, but Master Hector was a very serious kind of person. He would not joke at all. He would always be so serious, and he would always be replying so seriously and seriousness and all of that. And that is probably why what I remember Master asked him to start reading joke books, don't be so serious in life, be chilled out. Yes, Radaji?
Atma Namaste, Gagan ji.
Have
Atma
a-
Namaste, everyone. Thank you so much. You asked कि we can share something, no? तो that time I was busy. Sorry. तो मैं हिंदी में share करती हूँ, please.
Sure.
In 2023 हम लोग जयपुर में थे. तो एग्जाम टाइम था बच्चों का. तो उस टाइम पे मैंने पहली बार बाबा जी का नाम सुना और फिर मैंने गूगल किया. तो यू वॉन्ट बिलीव कि मतलब सिर्फ 10 दिन में मतलब मेरे को इतना वो हो गया कि नहीं मुझे मतलब जाना ही है कैसे भी करके जाना है. तो मैं रुपेश वहां थे लद्दाख थे उस टाइम पे. तो मैंने
Mm.
उनको बोला कि मेरे लिए टिकट बुक कर दो और मुझे जाना है. तो ही वॉज वरीड कि कैसे जाएगी अकेली क्या है बच्चों को लेके. मैंने कहा कोई बात नहीं कर दो. तो इन्होंने बुक कर दी. वो वेटिंग
I think you dropped out of the thing. Radaji dropped out most likely. I don't know. I can't really. Oh, yeah.
या सॉरी नेटवर्क इशू. तो उस टाइम पे ऐसा हुआ कि मुझे लगा कि मुझे जाना है, वेटिंग में थी, बट मैंने प्रे किया बाबा जी से, तो मेरा फर्स्ट क्लास में बुकिंग हो गई। तो आई वाज सो हैप्पी कि वाओ, मतलब ऑल ऑफ सडन, मतलब कैसे भी करके हम लोग स्टेशन पे थे। और रुपेश बहुत चिंता कर रहे थे कि नहीं हो पाएगा, कैसे जाएगी, इतना दूर का वो है ये वो। मैंने कहा नहीं हो जाएगा, तुम ट्राई करो। तो वो हो गया। एंड हम लोग मतलब हमें पता था कि वहां पे ब्लैंकेट दी जाती है, मतलब वो ब्लैंकेट वो लोग रखते नहीं है मोस्टली, वहां पे
हम्म
टच करके फिर आपको दे देते हैं। तो वो मेरे पास एक है। और मतलब उससे ये कहा जाता है कि वो ब्लैंकेट, जैसे घर में कोई बीमार है या कुछ भी है, तो वो ब्लैंकेट को अगर मतलब आप उनके ऊपर रखते हो, तो वो बहुत जल्दी ठीक हो जाता है। जैसे वो एक बुलेट वाला स्टोरी आपने जो पढ़ी थी, उसको जो था, तो वो ब्लैंकेट का मतलब स्टोरी वो सच है। तो वो मैंने एक्सपीरियंस किया, मेरे बेटे को मतलब बहुत फीवर थी, तो मैंने उसको वो रखा ब्लैंकेट, एंड वो मतलब फ्यू आवर्स में बिल्कुल ठीक हो गया। तो ये
ओह
सच है कि वहाँ की ब्लैंकेट्स बहुत काम करती हैं। तो वो अभी भी है, मतलब मैंने मंदिर में ही रखा है। तो बहुत पावरफुल है अभी तक, मतलब 2 साल से अभी तक कंटिन्यू। बस इतना ही था। थैंक यू। बस मेरा जाने का जो जर्नी थी वो बहुत मतलब मैं एक्सप्लेन नहीं कर पा रही हूँ वर्ड्स में। मतलब मैं दिन में जितनी बार बाबा जी को देखती थी उतनी बार, आपने एक बार बोला था कि क्यों रोते हैं लोग ना, भगवान को देख के कुछ मांगना है तो मांग लो, सीधे सीधे रोते क्यों। बट वो पता नहीं, वो अपने आप होता है,
no,
आप
of course,
मतलब
of course,
कंट्रोल,
of course, of course.
हाँ
When the
उसको
love
कंट्रोल
is
नहीं कर
so
पाते
much,
हम लोग, वो अपने आप होता
yeah, when the love is so much, रोना अपने आप आ जाता है. That is very natural.
है।
Good.
तो वो
Yes, Nidhi ji.
Atma Namaste, Gagan Bhaiya.
यस,
So,
थैंक यू थैंक यू।
I also have a story to share regarding Neem Karoli Baba.
Mm-hmm.
So, I am also a very big bhakt of Neem Karoli Baba, and I'm a Krishna follower. Also, I'm a devotee to Krishna. So, I every 2 months I go to Vrindavan now, and I go to Baba's Samadhi Sthal as well. So,
Okay.
how I started believing in him? So, because of a few reasons, I have become atheist for like 6 years in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I came from a very religious Jain family. So from the childhood, I was very religious. But for
Mm-hmm.
6 years, I was atheist. But suddenly, I don't know what happened. I was in Jaipur and I was in my job. And on Instagram, scrolling, I started seeing Babaji's photo. And then I was like, why this Baba is showing again and again on my feed? And then I Googled him, like, who is he? Why is he there? So then I got to know that he's some Babaji who left his body and from Neem Karoli and all. Then I started seeing him in my dreams,
Okay.
that someone is calling me. Like I started feeling magnetic, like he's like अपनी तरफ खींच रहे हैं मुझे. Then
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what happened. I left all my work, all my meetings. I mean, I had this urge inside me that I want to go to Kachi Dham no matter what. I want to go there. In just
Mm-hmm.
24 hours, I booked my flight tickets and I was there. And when I went into the ashram, the temple, so there are two dividations. One is the temple and all the temple area, and inside is a ashram and a havan sthal where
Okay.
master used where बाबाजी used to stay. तो अंदर वाला जो एरिया है वहां पे जाने नहीं दिया जाता है, बट मैं जिसके कांटेक्ट से गई थी तो आई वाज अलाउड टू गो इनसाइड. व्हेन यू गो देयर, मतलब रोड के बिल्कुल पास में ये आश्रम है, एंड इट डिवाइड्स विद अ रिवर. So of course you hear all the noises of the honking and everything. People are screaming and talking. But when I went inside, I could see hear nothing, nothing at all. And since I went there, my spiritual journey started. And in, I think in just 6 months, I came into pranic healing. And in just 3 months, I did my heretic yoga and Kriya Shakti as well.
Very
So
nice.
my life changed 360 degree.
Hmm.
So this was my
Interesting.
experience.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. Okay, thank you for the beautiful. By the way, if some of you really have that urge of going to the ashram of Neem Karoli Baba or Babaji's cave in near Rani Khet, and these places where great people have meditated and achieved. For example, there are many historical gurdwaras where the great spiritual teachers of the Sikh lineage have actually attained certain spiritual guidances, or they have powerful historical values where they sacrifice themselves and things like this. The energy is very, 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 very strong in places like this. If you someday go to, like, there is a very good gurdwara in Delhi called the Seesganj Gurdwara. I should really go sometimes, check the place out. Fantastic place for meditation, by the way. If I don't know how many of you guys have gone inside the Golden Temple in Amritsar. Most of you probably would have. That's my best guess. You can also go up in the first floor and the second floor also of the inside the Golden Temple, like inside the center of the Golden Temple, first and second floors, right? Um so me and my wife, we went there I think last year, and we did our whole Kundalini and level practice silently on our own. One of the most remarkable experiences. That social core of that place is about 4 meters in diameter. 4 meters, as one of the biggest that I've ever scanned. So that is very remarkable if you think about it. So when you go there next time, please take some time out and actually sit in the first floor, the second floor of the Golden Temple itself, and do your meditation, your practices over there. Don't make the mudras; that'll feel awkward. But just keep the hands on the side and do mentally. Yeah, that is what we did. Yeah, that is one thing which I'm going to request. Like me and my wife, we also when we went to Tiger's Nest in Bhutan, known for an extremely big spiritual aura, very, very, very powerful. We did our meditation over there also, Kundalini over there also. And I will recommend this to all of you, by the way. If you go to any of these places, don't just go and do sightseeing. Ah, acha, acha, kya fayda? Rather go and do your meditations over there. And do the Kundalini because that brings down the energy and circulates it in your whole system. Yeah, the cleansing effect of different places is different. Energizing is very, very different. Make sure you make it a point to practice meditations in these spots, so the energy integrates into your system and you evolve much, much faster compared to what you would have otherwise. If you go to Kenshitan, do the exact same thing. If you go to any of these places, do the exact same thing. Audible, exact same thing. Don't skip out these meditation practices, especially Kundalini, please. Kundalini is very important because it helps circulate the energy and integrate them into your chakras. Very, very powerful technique. Always make sure you do it. Yeah. Let's go forward. I find the scene really indescribable when we were with him while tripping. The experience of seeing him sitting there, looking and talking, was as if there was nobody at all. It was nobody playing a game of being somebody. That morning, described above by another devotee, was incredibly blissful. That whole day was like that. See, nobody playing the role of being a somebody. It's so cool, man. At the time of the acid trip means you take LSD and you trip on it basically. D had gotten Maharaji a new blanket, blue and yellow and red and green. I have a photograph of that colorful blanket. A lot of people were stoned on acid, sitting on around the table waiting for him to come out of his room. He almost leaped up on the table when he came. He had so much energy. Out he came. There he was. He poked some woman right in the front row in the chest and said, "Do you like LSD?" It was the first thing he said. He started laughing, and soon everybody was laughing. Then he got serious. Everybody started crying. It was as if he were pushing up buttons. At one point, everybody was crying. And he said, "What is all this crying? I can't stand crying. Stop all this crying." Funny. One dramatic LFC incident profoundly offended the sensibilities of Maharaj's Indian devotees. A young Westerner had taken LSD and had come to the temple with only a shawl wrapped around him. Then, as Maharaji was walking, holding the arms of two devotees, the young man came up behind Maharaji and attempted to embrace him from the rear. As he raised his arms to do this, his shawl covered the heads of the devotees at the same time, it revealed the young man's nakedness. This incident, which might have seemed scandalous to an onlooker, was seen quite differently by the young man himself, as is indicated by the following dialogue between himself and another devotee who had been present at the time of the incident. S. Well, my own experience with your trip that day was watching you grab Maharaji from behind. R. Yes, I wanted to kiss him. I wanted to hug and kiss him. Yes, and Maharaji was laughing. You had covered Dada's face and whoever else was walking with Maharaji with your red blanket. As you reached over to grab him from behind, you were naked under the blanket. Maharaji was all giggly and twinkling, wagging his head. And when he went alone into his room, you went off to pranam to the sweeper. He was the lowest guy in the ashram and he was there on my way out. I was such a nobody, I didn't even have a body. And this guy was God, standing there with a dirty broom. He had nothing, and I had to pranam to him. The sweeper was only about 12. You will never notice him. He was always there. But really, he was invisible. As while that was going on, Maharajji was in his room, locked in alone, but laughing a lot. I happened to be there, right there at the window. Maharaji was asking, "What happened? Why is he like that? What did he do?" I said, "Maharaji, I don't know." Then Maharaji asked, "He ate too many jalebis." Then he started talking about LSD, asking, "Do you take it? Do you take it? Do you take it?" To all of us outside the window. There was one Westerner who said proudly, "Yes, I do." Then word came back that you all had nothing on at all. There was silence for a while. Then, as we were all looking at Maharaji, he leaned right up against the screen of the window, looked straight at the Indian devotee, and said, "Naked." The shocked devotee put his hands over his crotch and hunched over a bit, exclaiming, "Maharaji, you were sitting outside singing with everyone." Dada looked out and exclaimed, "There he is, it's him." Maharaji looked and said, "I don't know, I don't think so. I don't think that's him." This went back and forth for quite some time. Dada would say, "I know it's him, I am sure it's him." Maharaji just wouldn't recognize you. Finally, after about 20 minutes, Maharaji said, "Well, maybe it's him." Then he called you over and told you to leave. Yes. It was translated as, "Maharajji says you're wicked and you must leave right away." I said, "Okay, Maharajji, but I don't see how it could possibly have upset him. I saw him that day as very loving all the way through. When I was being carried out, I couldn't walk, I had no legs. I was in complete bliss. I felt as if I were being carried by angels. There was so much love all around me that I didn't feel any confusion. About a month later, you came back to the ashram for the first time after the acid trip, all dressed up in dhoti with a vest. You came and joined the satsang, sitting outside the window singing. Or I don't know what he called me because my Hindi was really poor then. It was something that he always calls the Dada, something like Badmash but different. He said, "Fool, jao," and it blew my mind. I was so hurt. It was like the rejection of the ultimate lover. It was really painful. I staggered out of the ashram thinking, he can't do this to me. I'm going to come back a million times. Oh wow, this is good, yeah. Oh, this is good. I'm gonna come back a million times. But the incident created in me the desire to change myself. I started feeling guilty for things I'd done when I was 2 years old. I was so full of remorse at what a badmash I was that I felt a kind of determination to win his love back. When I finally did get back in after I went to Lama Govinda, I came back in with Anatha. This is not long before Maharaji died. Everyone was sitting around and he was giving darshan. I was so afraid that he was going to throw me out. But I appeared very calm. He looked right at me and said, "Did you come with her?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "You came from Lama Govinda?" "Yeah, right." Then he said, "How long?" And he rolled his eyes back and looked away. And all of a sudden, he whirled back and looked right at me and said, "Jao." And then some guy right behind me jumped up and ran away. I realized that he'd yelled at right over my head. Then he looked at me and laughed. I was forgiven. After that, he looked at me several times just and laughed. It was just bliss. After this incident, Maharaj started saying LSD causes one to become naked and dance around. And he called us all together in the back of the Kanchi ashram. We were all sitting around in a big circle. There were perhaps 35 Westerners over there. Maharaj went around each person naming them by name and asking, "Have you ever had LSD?" And everyone said, "Yes, Maharaj, every person." There was, in fact, only one of the group who hadn't taken LSD, a Frenchman who had lived in Israel for some time. Maharaj thought about it for a while. He was sitting there meditating on it. Later that day, four young men came to ashram. They'd just come. Maharaj said, "Doctor, I went into the office and I said, four young men have come." Doctor probably means not Ramdas, somebody else, yeah. Four young men have come. Go to the gate and evict them from the ashram because they have taken LSD. I went to the gate of the ashram and said, "Hello, have you guys by any chance taken LSD?" The four of them said, "No, we have never taken LSD." And I said, "Excuse me, let me go check." I kept them at the gate and went to see Maharaj Ji. Maharaj Ji, they've never taken LSD. He said, "Go, kick them out of the ashram, they've taken LSD." I went back and asked them again. I said, "Maharaj says you can't come in. You have to leave the ashram. You've taken LSD." They argued very vigorously. They said that they have never taken LSD. I went back to Maharaj and pleaded for them. I said, "Maharaj, all of us have taken a lot of LSD, and really, I have taken quite a bit. We've all taken quite a bit of LSD." And he said, "Those four boys have taken LSD. Go kick them out of the ashram. That's an order." So I went out and kicked them out of the ashram. They never came back. I don't understand anything about that incident. KK once had the desire to try LSD but felt it only proper first to ask Maharaj's permission. When he put the question to Maharaj, Maharaj replied, "What? Is something the matter with your mind?" Younger photograph, right? Of Maharaj, black beard and stuff. All right, so this finishes one more chapter of this beautiful book. We will try to close it. Supreme God, great divine Father, great divine Mother, thank you for your great blessings. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you to our great spiritual teacher, to all the great spiritual teachers, to all the great gods and goddesses, to all the great, great ones. We very, very humbly thank you for your great blessings. We thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Everyone, take care. See you. Atma Namaste and have a great day. Bye.